Joining us, former longtime Pentagon and national security correspondent Barbara Starr, staff writer for The Atlantic and professor emeritus at the U.S. Naval War College, Tom Nichols, and retired four-star general and MS Now contributor General Barry McCaffrey. General, your thoughts on Pete Hegseth's performance today? Did he answer enough questions for you?
Well, look, I probably testified to Congress over 100 times, and the rancor and political divisiveness that I encountered years ago is nothing compared to today. It's not a forum for rational debate of defense policy, so there's that. I think a second observation you got to make is that how wars end is more consequential than how they began. So the focus on the splendid performance of U.S. air power and naval power and Army air defense units is appropriate. They've hit 13,000 targets. We don't want a nuclear-armed Iran. We don't want an Iran that threatens Israel and its neighbors. Having said that, right now, the Department of Defense is in trouble. We don't know how to break out of a strategic gridlock, which is politically and economically damaging to the U.S. and our allies globally. And it doesn't appear as if there's any way forward. They're not going to give up that nuclear weapons program without decisive outcomes, and they're not going to let go of the Gulf of Hormuz because of 2 Marine battalions and the 82nd Airborne Brigade. So the question is, what next? And Mr. Trump and his Secretary of Defense do not have an answer.
Yeah, that was one of the more striking moments. The defense secretary and the Joint Chiefs was asked, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs was asked whether there was a strategy for the contingency of Iran shutting down the Strait of Hormuz, whether Pete Hegseth prepped the president for that possibility. Barbara, did you get a good answer on that?
Well, I agree with General McCaffrey. I don't think we heard an answer, and I think it's becoming increasingly clear there isn't one. Going into this war, it was never about achieving some sort of vague military victory, because there wasn't a military victory to be had. Look, over these past weeks, yes, the U.S. has destroyed much of Iran's conventional capability that was providing the shield to protect their nuclear program. But Iran still is capable of launching asymmetric attacks should it choose to, and there is no indication at this time they plan to give up any of their nuclear ambitions in a way that would be fully verifiable by the world community. There's just no indication that they are preparing to do that. So what do? You grind on with negotiations. You have some sort of standstill on the military side of the equation. And you have basically an economic war across the world now with the Strait of Hormuz closed, oil prices going through the roof, the impact around the world. That's the real war here, the economic and financial war that is being waged because the U.S. cannot get to a solution with Iran at this time.
Let me play a little bite from how this all started. Pete Hegseth, how he came into the hearing, and what it means for how he was going to compose himself and answer questions. Here's Hegseth talking about the biggest threat to this country right now.
The biggest challenge, the biggest adversary we face at this point are the reckless, feckless, and defeatist words of congressional Democrats and some Republicans 2 months in, I remind you, 2 months in to a conflict. Lest I remind you, and my generation understands how long we were in Iraq, how long we were in Afghanistan, how long we were in Vietnam. 2 months in on an existential fight for the safety of the American people, Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. We are proud of this undertaking.
All right. So, Tom, why would he start it off that way? Why would that be in his opening remarks? Yes, this is a hearing, the first time he's on Capitol Hill since the war began, but it is also a hearing for the Pentagon budget. And he needs Democrats to sign on to the Pentagon budget, the $1.4 trillion budget that's been proposed, unless Republicans want to do it through reconciliation, which will be hard. So why start it off that way?
Because he's not a public servant. He's a television performer. And he is doing the thing that he thinks is most effective, which is making sure that he is showing his loyalty to President Trump, showing his contempt for the opposition party. He's not really interested in, I mean, basically, he's trying to get through this hearing while scoring his points and not really trying to talk about the budget, in part because and I've watched this thing all day. I've been here for hours watching this, in part because it's clear in question after question after question, he doesn't know what the Pentagon budget is. He doesn't grasp most of these things. He is, as I say every time, he is in way over his head. And so when people ask about the budget, he comes back with this very stock answer. Well, how much would you pay for Iran not to get a nuclear weapon? Well, even during the Cold War, when thousands of nuclear weapons were pointed at the United States, secretaries of defense went to Congress, showed a certain amount of respect for the environment they were in, even if they didn't think very much of the other party, answered questions about the budget, and simply didn't say, how much would you pay not to have Brezhnev nuke us? It's a childish, inane performance, and that's why he began that way, because that's what he thinks his job is.
So he had a couple of tough questions from Republicans today. It's going to be different tomorrow, Tom, when he has to sit in front of the Senate. There are a lot more skeptical senators, some even saying they regret their vote for him. Your magazine had some great reporting a couple days ago regarding Hegseth and whether he's giving the president the full picture of the war, including some quotes from people who worry that because he has no allies, that he is singularly reliant on the president. From this performance today, where he went after Democrats and refused to answer a lot of questions and was performative through much of it, do you get the indication that he's worried about his job, that he is worried the president is not happy enough with him?
He's of course, he's absolutely worried about his job, and he ought to be. He's been very bad at it. The one thing he has going for him is slavish devotion to Donald Trump, but he has been the source of one embarrassment and foul up after another. And it's clear, I think, that you'll probably get more of the same tomorrow, because every time he's asked a substantive question, his answer is Joe Biden, Barack Obama, Donald Trump is amazing. This is not a real hearing, and I don't expect that tomorrow would be a real hearing. And I think the senators who are prepared to question him know that it's not going to be a real hearing, because Pete Hegseth is not a competent Secretary of Defense who can make his way through a real hearing. And so when he's asked things, for example, like, did you assume, did you brief the president on this risk? Of course, General Kane, who, is looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, has to say, I can't really answer that. It's a part, I can't get dragged into these arguments. But Hegseth isn't going to say what he knows to be the truth. Yes, of course, we told the president this. And yes, the president waved it away because Donald Trump doesn't take briefings seriously. You're going to get more of that tomorrow. And I think that's in part, you're going to get more of these answers that are meant to say, please don't fire me. I'm totally loyal, and look how much I hate Democrats.
I thought it was interesting, Barbara, that he, in that criticism of Democrats, he said it's only been 2 months. It took a lot longer in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Vietnam. 3 wars that we don't remember fondly in this country, but also 3 wars that were authorized, at least the use of force, were authorized by Congress. There was congressional authorization in Vietnam. There was the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. That was from 1964. There was a use of military force resolution for Afghanistan, a separate one for Iraq. This is a war that has not been congressionally approved in any way. They haven't even had a chance to approve a supplemental, because the Pentagon hasn't officially brought a request for a supplemental yet to Congress.
A lot of loose ends there. I think they're coming very close to that deadline. People are even talking about May 1st, where the Pentagon the administration is going to have to go to Congress and, ask for some type of authorization. We'll see how the administration, I suspect, will try to sidestep all of that and just continue with what it's doing. But, Hegseth's strategy, as Tom said, seems to be relying at the moment on attacking everyone else, attacking Congress fundamentally for asking these questions when it is the responsibility, the legal responsibility of Congress to question administration officials about what they're doing on behalf of the American people. So, we'll see at the moment how far this goes. Trump does not appear, at least publicly, to be disenchanted with Hegseth, and we'll have to see how far Hegseth can carry all of this. I think usually what we find is, again, heaven forbid, there's a mass casualty incident of some sort. That's usually when a Secretary of Defense is called to account. And it was interesting today, I thought, several members did try to call him to account on the death of 6 military members killed in Kuwait in the opening hours of the war for lack of protection from Iranian attacks at the site they were manning in Kuwait, something Hegseth initially brushed away and tried to get out of talking in detail about today, but very clear that those troops did not have the protection they needed.